All right. I took my sip. I'm not AI. I'm here. And let's see. Make sure we're live on our platforms here. And grab that. Ooh, beautiful. So, hello, everybody, and welcome. Looks like we're live here on Substack. Looks like we are live here on YouTube. I am reaching you here on either Banner and Backbone. As well as the Firebrand Project, as well, wherever you're watching or tuning in from to get a geopolitical update on what's going on in the world. Thank you so much for joining me today. So it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild out there, folks. It's really been just nuts. I mean, everything's crazy. Everything is changing. Nothing is stable at all. And um, I think understanding geopolitics and understanding the wider relationship between all of these countries and their objectives is so important these days. So I'm grateful for you guys to take the moment to come in and get your news here today. Uh, as a quick announcement, if you haven't already hit the heart button, whether you're watching this recording live or you're watching this live or you're watching the recording, do that. Hit the heart, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Guys, I've been building out all the other socials. So we're on Blue Sky now. We're on TikTok. We're on X. We're on anything and everything, right? We're going to be really aggressive here. We're going to try and really take advantage of all of the different platforms, even if I don't necessarily agree with or endorse the oligarchs, whoever is in control, those media companies. Regardless of that, we want to be playing on all the fields. We want to be bringing integrity, open source, very verifiable geopolitical reporting on every platform. And the reality is that you have to go to where the people are, and that's how we're doing that. So we're really going to get out into the zone. And if you guys are interested in just now, you actually can see this QR code here on the screen. What that is that's actually going to take you to a link tree where you can go and subscribe to all of the Firebrand Project socials now. So you can go there, and if you have any of the socials on that link tree, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to that, as well as the YouTube channel. So all kinds of cool stuff we're going on. I have a TikTok that we're gonna get rolling. We're gonna be on Threads. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool, and I have a little bit of pull on TikTok because I had done some work over there as well. So I think we're gonna do well on TikTok. But I'm excited, and so make sure you guys come and support me in all of those other platforms to really kind of jumpstart that growth and make sure we're getting this news out there. There's also going to be a lot of different, cool things you'll get there. Like on TikToks, you'll see more Aaron Parnas style. Like, I hate to even quote the man, but like more just short, direct news briefs on things like that. That way you can get this news in short videos. On X and Blue Sky, you're going to be getting bulletins on little things that I see that are happening here nor there that we don't have time to write a whole report about. There's just going to be a lot of different things that we can do on different platforms to really achieve greater saturation and coverage on a wider net. So, using these tools and the ability to deploy on multiple platforms is going to be really cool. And I hope you guys go ahead and then scan this QR code or go to the link tree that you can find on my profile or the website or linked in this video recording as well. So with all of that said, like I said, it's just nuts these days. It's just crazy everywhere you look. And, to really, really want to make sure that first of all, I want to give you guys just a quick update on Iran. So this is the very latest information that I have. And then the actual spotlight today is going to be focused on North America and the EU. But because of the level of tension surrounding Iran and the amount of reporting that you're going to see on it versus the amount of people who actually know what the hell they're talking about, there's a very big difference and a discrepancy in terms of people who are going to be talking about it and people who actually are familiar and observe the region. So I want to give you guys at least the best information I can get you, because this is just the way of things. Everyone wants to have an opinion and be right, which is just why it's so important that we do this primary, verifiable, open source reporting, to really combat that sensationalism versus factuality. So let me give you guys the latest on that. If you're just now getting here, make sure you hit that heart button. Make sure you like this, and make sure you restack it or share if you're watching a recording later. And without further ado, I'm going to get right into the news. We got a lot to talk about today, and there's no time to waste. So, my friends, it is February 24th, 2026. I am reporting to you from the fascist states of America, and the world is on fire. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Firebrand Report, North American Spotlight. So before we even get into North America, though, I want to just give you guys the very latest on what's going on, particularly around Iran, and what I know. Particularly, I want to talk about what do we have there? What does the United States have in the region? So we know, and the Abraham Lincoln has been there. It's about 700 kilometers off Oman's coast in the Arabian Sea, with 3 guided missile destroyers, as well as 90 aircraft on board. These consist of F-15 Strike Eagles, which is a less stealthy plane. It's got a contingent of F-35s, but this is a very standard carrier deployment group. And of course, with those 3 destroyers, you're going to have the accompanying support elements as well. The USS Gerald R. Ford is confirmed and moving towards the Middle East. Its last ping was around Morocco in the Mediterranean. It's expected to join the Lincoln soon. Trump has ordered warships, tankers, and submarines into the region as well, as part of this buildup. And of course, he made his 10 to 15 day timeline for them to make a deal, but things seem to be getting more and more aggressive, particularly the posturing there. So the buildup itself continues. It's really not slowing down. It's just hard to see a world where you move all those things there and you don't do something, particularly the amount of time they're waiting. Are they going to wait for the Gerald R. Ford to get there? Are they not? They should. If they are going to do something, they should wait for the Ford, but maybe they don't. Honestly, these guys are crazy. I think I've been candid about this before, but from a military perspective, from a logistics perspective, they're looking at a mistake that they're just not going to be able to, the things they use in Iran are not going to be replaceable. It's certainly not at scale or at speed. So, and we're actually going to talk about a little bit of this resource shortage the United States is experiencing. We've seen base evacuations now as well from NATO allies in the region. I put out a post on X this morning, as well as Blue Sky, talking about the withdrawal of friendly forces from bases in Iraq, where NATO allies are pulling out troops in anticipation of retaliation by Iran. There is a deal that I saw reported on by Senator America as well, or maybe it wasn't Senator America. There was a deal I saw this morning about China in talks with providing hypersonic missiles to Iran. I think that the intent is significant. The speed with which they would be delivered is really in the air. I don't know, and there hasn't been an agreed upon time for delivery. So these other countries as well, they're experiencing a ton of pushback from countries in the Middle East. Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. Turkey is pushing the United States not to take this action. But the buildup continues. the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia is now advising its staff to limit to non-essential personnel in the region, and they are pulling more troops out of the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Um, Ironically, they are still claiming that Operation Midnight Hammer did in fact obliterate Iran's nuclear program, even though now the claims suggest that they're getting ready to strike because they're close to enriching uranium again. It's ridiculous. Look, on the question is, could they launch strikes on Iran within days? Yes. Has the Olympics passed? Is it more likely now that we see it? Sure. You have Trump again threatening. He's always threatening, though. I don't really care what he says. As long as there's assets from the United States moving to the region, I think it would be really stupid of them, which generally speaking, they are pretty stupid. So it could be, but uh, it would be pretty stupid of them to not have their full force available if they're going to attack. Pretty significant, though, more so than anything, to be honest with you, is this deal that Iran reportedly agreed to receive 500 million in arms from Russia, including Verba manpads, launchers, and 2,500 missiles over 3 years to rebuild their air defenses. So how much of that are they going to see now? I'm not sure. How much is Russia even going to provide to Iran? I'm not sure. Historically speaking, since the war in Ukraine began, Russia has not done a very good job in meeting its obligations to provide weapons to other countries. Iran will absolutely fight back. In fact, I think that this ends very poorly for the United States, whether they win or not, particularly these manpad systems. You see the massing of aircraft in the region. You have contingents of like 70 plus on both of these aircraft carriers, right? The Ford has a contingent of, I want to say, around 80 to 70. But the actual groups and totaling in the region is we're well over 200 aircraft. Manpads are man-portable air defense systems. Okay, so these are the kind of things where you can have an individual shoot down a strike aircraft, not unsimilar to the F-15E Strike Eagle, which is what we're seeing them mass a lot of as well. Iran is very capable of building its own missiles, and they could definitely see the delivery of these manpad air defense systems quickly in short order. The missiles, less so, but there is a chance they get those pretty quickly. And if they do, that is just another consideration in terms of the reality is this strike that they're preparing. This is entirely an air campaign. There is 0 troops on the ground near Iran, and they're pulling out personnel from these bases. It almost seems to me like they're expecting to have their like bases kind of blown up, and they just want to remove all the things they can so they get hurt as little as possible. But a high casualty situation for the United States is not unheard of. In fact, it's statistically more likely to me than not, particularly considering the insane shortage of interceptors. The United States has moved lots of Patriot missile batteries that are meant to intercept these missiles and shoot down aircraft to the region. But the batteries themselves are pulling from a stockpile that is less than 1,000 total interceptors. And just the 12-day war alone used up a significant percentage of the United States interceptors. Israel does not have many interceptors either. This is kind of a chronic shortage that everyone is choosing to ignore. And if Iran is able to, put up any kind, which they have more missiles, like they actually confirmed have more missiles than the United States has interceptors. Actually, it's close to a figure of twice as many missiles as the United States has interceptors. So a lot of this too, I think this time is taking, it's not because they don't want to do it. It's because they need to basically strip every other place around the world. They need to liquidate, I'm going to use this term, liquidate munitions from other regions and fly them to the Middle East. They could just be pulling the troops out to get everyone nervous again, right? Like these guys manipulate the stock market. Every time they move troops in and out, the petrodollar gets more volatile, and then they, invest in something, right? Like these guys are billionaires. They're manipulators of the markets, and they have lots and lots of reasons to say what they're going to say, because every time Trump opens his mouth, the stock market does a backflip. Iran, there's nothing really the United States can do to stop a shipment of weapons from China unless they interdict them in the airspace. Because I would think that China would deliver those weapons by like a bulk carrier, like an aircraft. So, the discussions are framed basically as serious by both, but it's this whole thing we've gone back and forth. Is there's a red line for Iran, which is the ballistic missile program, and they should have some uranium, and a red line for the United States that says you can't have a missile program and you can't have uranium. So this is just absolutely not really something that I think both sides are buying time. So the real concern I have around Iran, in particular, is most importantly the verifiable, objective reality that the United States is planning to attack an adversary with more offensive capabilities than they actually have defensive capabilities. And you could argue, well, I'm only talking about missiles. I haven't even begun to talk about Shahed drones and the ability of Iran to launch waves of hundreds of drones at these Navy vessels. Iran has adapted a fleet of cargo containers to serve as basically aircraft carriers for Shahed drones. They can carry thousands of these things. It's really, I would liken the likelihood that this becomes America's Ukraine is way higher than I think anybody is giving serious credence to. I think this is going to shatter. I could be wrong. This is my opinion. I think this has the potential to shatter the global perception of United States military dominance. And I think we're going to see that in Iran. Hopefully, none of this happens. Hopefully, they don't bomb Iran and they don't kill thousands and thousands of innocent people in a firebombing campaign. And they don't see hundreds of sailors killed in retaliatory action. From the perspective of, is the United States destroying its relationships with all of the countries in the region? Yes, absolutely. The less friends the Trump regime has, the better, in my opinion. And if they get kicked out of that corner of the world because they don't listen to the people who run the show there, that makes them weaker. So from a perspective of, the global order and the United States destabilizing it, that is a silver lining. But, those are few and far between these days, right? So, it's just it's one of those things you really have to, watch with a grain of salt. But, I digress. I mean, I think that if anything else happens in Iran for the time being, make sure you guys subscribe to the TikTok as well as the other platforms, because I will be putting out updates on various platforms as well as on TikTok, where I'll be trying to put out regular updates on what's going on in Iran. So with all that said, though, that's not the topic of today's show. The topic of today's show, of course, is going to be all about the Atlantic fracture and this consistent pattern we're seeing of large-scale decoupling of the United States and the departure and disintegration of the transatlantic partnership. The Atlantic order that existed 4 years ago today, when Russia invaded Ukraine, is dead, gone, doesn't exist, right? Like even the world order that existed in 2025, it doesn't exist. the evidence in today's show, in this coverage, is not its alliance, not a drift in alliance. It's not a weakening of alliances. It's the active separation of a of a system that was pre-existing, the death of these existing relationships, um, where you have basically, from a trade perspective, this big push for autonomy, whether that is in Europe, whether that is in Canada, whether that is in the United States. Um, we're having some weird, like some serious developments politically within the EU, where you're starting to see the very deep fractures, particularly around Hungary. I might add, before we go even farther into the show, make sure you hit the like button. Do that. Hit the heart. If you haven't hit the heart yet, do it. Um, and I would add, last week, we actually covered that Viktor Orban received a visit from Marco Rubio, who endorsed him and said that Trump says that Orban's success is his success. So that same guy is using his EU vote to block Ukrainian aid, as well as to make the EU's job difficult in the support of Ukraine at this really pivotal moment, as we're coming up on four years of war in Ukraine, which is remarkable if you think about it. I mean, they said 2 to 3 days. Everyone said 2 to 3 days. It just goes to show, we can be so wrong. The analysts, the governments, the think tanks, they can all be so wrong. 4 years today. It just goes to show. They said Ukraine couldn't do it. And now Ukraine is sitting at the precipice of being the black swan that restructures the global order by defeating Russia. And I do believe they can defeat Russia, 100%. But this pattern, right, that we're talking about, it's a structural pattern, right? We're talking about the geopolitical system. The system is showing us that it's moving. It's been altered. The equilibrium is no longer there. We are seeing a rapid shift. Europe has absolutely seen that the United States is no longer reliable as a security partner. In fact, in many ways, they should be viewed as an adversary in terms of the world order. And I think that is very true, at least in my perception as of right now. The United States is reevaluating its tariff strategy, not repealing it. So that's not going to help, or really, it's going to complicate a lot of things, because the trade deals already pre-existing, right, were made under the stipulations that it would moderate or mitigate or reduce or eliminate Trump's tariffs under the IEEPA, which the United States Supreme Court ruled was unconstitutional. So he pivoted away from that to a different type of tariff, which was under, I want to say, the 1974 Trade Act, Section 122. I know it's Section 122, but the point being is that they just had another way to do tariffs. The way, I do geopolitics. A lot of my audience is from other places around the world, but obviously I am American, and I loathe my current the country that I currently live in. But in the tyrannical regime, I am a pro-democracy, open source, integrity-based reporter, and obviously I have zero values that align with the current United States in really any capacity. I actually feel that it's my responsibility as a American who cares about democracy on a genuine, like, philosophical level. I think all people should be provided with an opportunity to choose who they represent, organize themselves, and to live without fear of reprisal, oppression, violence, any of those things, something that we can never have without integrity and open source journalism. So when we go into this report, if you're watching and you see the flag, That's why, because it's one of those things where I feel like I have to say something now, you know? I've gone back and forth. Do I leave it? Do I take it down or not? And I don't think I'm gonna take it down. But I mean, there's nothing to be proud of as an American right now. In uh you know, so so, you know, I I I don't need to send any there. So really quick, because the comment being, hey, you need to send these things to Lev or Parnas, that they have access to this. This is what I want you guys to understand. This is why like I said, I'm committed to integrity and open source reporting. There is absolutely nothing that I share with you that these people don't have access to. Them not sharing this information with you is a choice, because they have access to what I have. Like, when you get your news, you can choose to go to the Washington Post, or you can choose to go to an open source think tank that's run by analysis and is not for profit. Uh, I choose to go to the think tank for the open source analysis, and they choose to go to the for profit American media. I'm not saying I will never, reference them if there's, but the reality is I'm not ever going to just be like, yeah, that's where I go to get my news. So to be honest with you, these people, if you want that kind of content from them, you need to tell that to them. I've tried to share this with this community. These people really just aren't interested. It's money to me, to be honest with you. You can't you can either use everything you're available to you, or you cannot. But this is all open source. I don't need, we don't need insiders. We don't need people who know the system, because the world with the internet, we have so much information. We are problem solvers. So if these people want this information and they want to get this information, they can go and get it themselves, or you can come here where I already get it for you and it's already done. And I am deeply committed to doing it a certain way. And so that's why I get I get a little frustrated sometimes, because people be like, oh, go tell Lev Parnas, go tell Aaron Parnas, go tell Midas Touch. Like, when I started doing this, I did reach out to these people. Like, I did all of these things. Trust me when I say that they're not interested in listening to us. They're interested in making money, generally speaking. You reach a certain point, there's no reason to listen to people. You can keep doing what you're doing and it's monetized. So that's my opinion. I think there's a lot of money involved in all these things. And can I say with certainty that they're only doing it for money? No. But I can tell you that the highest ranked sources in the United States in terms of independent journalism and the people doing these things hardly hold a candle to the sources that I reference every day. World news is more important than ever, and what the people of Congress said couldn't matter any less. So we all really need to reshape the scope. I'm good at this. This is what I do. I'm here to do it. So anyway, if you're just now getting here, hit the heart button, like this video, like this live stream, and let's get into the news. What's going on in Europe? So we talked about it a little bit earlier. Today is 4 years since Russia began the invasion of Ukraine. It's seen hundreds of thousands dead in Ukraine, probably well over 400,000 casualties in Ukraine. Russia, well over 1 million. Deaths probably somewhere around a quarter, maybe more of that. The Europe assembled actually in Kiev to mark the anniversary and state their coordinated support of Ukraine, and signaling a divergence away from Russia in terms of their larger economic strategy, more sanctions, and discussions around other ways they can limit Russia's income. Yes, today as well in Kiev, President Volodymyr Zelensky, he addressed the nation, stating Putin has failed to break Ukraine's spirit or achieve his objectives, and it's true. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who I just want to say is probably the most undervalued and important geopolitical figure I can think of. And the only reason I can think of it is because of just the deep-rooted misogyny in every part of Western culture, that they choose to not point out the woman who leads the bloc that is the European Union, which is even more complex and difficult to handle than the United States, who has somehow managed to make things happen, to move mountains. You know, it's incredible what she's done. And very often the press goes to Keir Starmer or Macron or Chancellor Merz. She's like a footnote a lot of the time, and she shouldn't be. She's one of the most important people humanity has ever seen, and she's in charge of a very important coalition at a time when it couldn't be more important that Europe be decisive, and that's exactly what she's managed to do with the EU, and it's really impressive. So, you know, van der Leyen, she attended a memorial ceremony alongside other officials from France, Germany, and Poland. In Brussels, Mark Rutte, the NATO secretary, he declared NATO's unwavering support for Ukraine and its resistance and their courage. Multiple capitals from the G7 issued a joint statement reaffirming support for Ukraine's territorial integrity, while the U.S. conducted separate talks with Russia throughout the week. Yes, so I want to talk about that really quick because I want to clarify this to you guys. The meetings between the United States and Russia, they serve one purpose. It's for Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to visit frequently with the Kremlin and to align on whatever their wider strategy is. We have to view everything, especially what's going on in Iran, with a grain of salt when it pertains to Russia's help and Russia's not. Like, was Russia helping? Are they not? It's really murky, right? Because in the United States, particularly with the Epstein Files, you have all these people saying, oh, well, Russia and the United States are totally aligned. It's like, well, they can't be totally aligned because from a geopolitical perspective, they're still adversaries. They're still acting adversarial. So what really has to be determined, and this is not an answer I have, is at what level is the collusion going on and how far is the United States? I do believe the United States is the one being manipulated and used. I think that Kushner and Witkoff are naive idiots who have really never had to deal with anyone who either wasn't afraid of them or wasn't, going to do what they said. And to be honest with you, this Putin and them, these guys, I think they're starting to learn this billionaire oligarch government that has become the Trump regime. They are starting to learn that their money and America's clout actually has a ceiling. And I think they're starting to rub their head on that ceiling. So, at what point is Russia's goal more likely to be collapse the United States? I tend to think that the removal of the United States as an adversary in its entirety is the objective of Putin. So I don't think that it can just be, oh, they're against each other. I think the ultimate goal is to destroy the United States. And I think that these people and manipulating them and taking advantage of them, using them to get money into Russia, like crypto has been how Russia is financing its war. Steve Witkoff is the crypto guy. That's what he does. Howard Lutnick, they've built these channels for Russia to use and abuse. And that's why these talks are going on, because Ukraine isn't even party to a lot of these talks. So this is where we're talking about Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner meeting with these Russian officials so frequently. It has nothing to do with Ukraine, right? It's all pretext for a different type of dynamic. I want to go ahead and you know, give a couple, quotes here from, various people. This is Mark Rutte. He says, "Remember today and every day what Ukraine has endured. But while we pay tribute to those lost and those suffering, we also stand in hope, inspired by 4 years of unbroken resistance and unwavering courage." Saudis are also very deeply involved in crypto. Again, the relationship between the United States billionaire government in Saudi Arabia is in question for me right now as well, because of the United States actions around Iran and the stark resistance from regional leaders around that kind of action. So, the war, of course, has been the most deadly since World War II in Europe. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian civilians have been killed through similar strategies to that of, um, basically just drone bombardment, mass waves of loitering munitions, Shahed drones, and ballistic missiles, targeting of infrastructure, and the overall attempt by Russia to just break the will of the Ukrainian people, which it's not, which isn't working. Um, and that's something that, as someone who can trace my heritage back to Kiev, half of my family from Kiev, I'm very proud of Ukraine, Slava Ukraini, and as a pro democracy reporter and journalist, like that, Ukraine is absolutely one of those flashpoints for democracy on a larger scale, which is why a billionaire regime that is trending towards autocracy would want to support the other guys. Hungary has blocked the Ukraine aid in as acting as a Russian proxy within the EU. For those of you who know the EU, that's not really a surprise. Hungary and Viktor Orban is something that has been a problem for a while. He's a puppet for the Kremlin. So Hungary blocked European funding for Ukraine on February 24th on the anniversary, constraining Ukraine's ability to get that military funding. The prime minister, Mr. Viktor Orban, has used his veto power consistently to obstruct aid to Ukraine. Brussels did, in fact, this morning, at this meeting in Brussels, when they chose to veto the funding mechanism for Ukraine, that 90 billion some odd US dollars that will fund Ukraine through 2027. The European Commission announced that it's going to submit a legal proposal for a permanent Russian oil ban on April 15th, 3 days after Hungary's parliamentary election, February for 26, after their February election. Orban's veto timing, this coordinates with the strategic objectives in Russia, particularly by degrading Ukraine's financial resiliency at a time when Ukraine is actually making huge gains in southeastern Russian controlled territory, liberating massive swaths of territory that Russia paid for dearly. And they're seeing the biggest gains that they've made since 2023 in the counteroffensive. Uh, you know, this is all part of a larger policy, and Hungary's role within the EU under the Kremlin has been to disrupt and stagnate the EU, something that von der Leyen has actively, under 2025 and under her leadership, had to find ways to actually get around. The EU is choosing to do this for a post-election timing. This is them, and basically this is an idea of them recognizing what Hungary is going to do, and they are waiting until after the election for the vote, because the people of Hungary most certainly do not like Orban. They have been protesting a lot. It's very clear from a global perspective that the people of Hungary don't want Orban. So if he wins, it's going to be through election manipulation, the use of force, autocracy, which I suspect he will try and do, because the Kremlin now more than ever needs its cronies everywhere. So I would expect to see that continue actually as well. But this is, them and their understanding basically demonstrating that, yep, okay, we should hold this vote after. And if the elections don't go the right way, the EU has mechanisms to, censure members as well to a degree. And there's other mechanisms to get around things like that. And I would note that this is the guy who Marco Rubio visited right after the Munich Security Conference. You can go and find the picture of Marco Rubio and Viktor Orban. In fact, I'll show you because I just think this is so ridiculous. Um, it's like if you go from the Munich Security Conference, right, to to seeing them go and basically directly endorse the enemy, which is certainly Russia, right? Like a direct endorsement of Russia. And you can see right here on my screen. If I put this up here, I'll full size it, right? But look at these. This really happened. This really happened. Look at fucking Marco Rubio. He looks horrible, by the way, but that really happened. Like that's happening right now. So the United States is directly treating with Viktor Orban and the Hungary government and actively saying your success is our success, which means that Russia's success is Trump's success. Like, if you're going to say it, you might as well say it because that's a very roundabout way of saying that, yeah, we work for the Kremlin now. So, so you can't make this shit up, guys. Europe is advancing towards establishing a trillion euro bond market to fund rapid defense buildup, with initial proposals targeting 500 billion euros over the next decade. The plan involves a 150 billion security action for Europe, SAFE, or SAFE facility for centralized defense funding, and capital increase in the European Investment Bank, enabling the deployment of up to 150 billion for EU defense supply chains. Very, very very significant option, especially in terms of arming Europe. The rearmament of Europe is important. As a comment here, are we doomed? I don't think we're ever doomed. I think that if we choose, everything in about being human is a choice, right? Humans choose to make war upon each other. Humans choose to, build systems that allow them to assault, traffic, and victimize and make victims out of children, and then institutionalize those systems within federal governments. Like humans choose to do that, so we can choose to do something else. Like humans are choosing to let fossil fuel companies drive the planet towards mass extinction, like they're doing that right now, and we choose to let those companies run what was the most powerful country on the planet. But I'm also getting articles about, from people who say that the world has never been more productive from a solar standpoint, that they've reached, and that nuclear fusion is at whole new levels. We have the tools. Like, we can't undo the damage. Like, the earth is to some degree, the earth is irreparably damaged. And we're going to have to deal with that very soon. And my hope is that these countries, we can deal, at least in America, with our autocracy problem to lend our help to solving the global problem, which was really reinforced by American oil and gas and money and power. And I think that, that is how we have to look at it, right? Like, there's bigger problems than just us. The end state of where we're at right now from a geopolitical perspective is extinction, because of the inhabitability of the planet due to the destruction of our biosphere. So we have to build systems with the evil tendencies of humans in mind to regulate and stop these things. If we don't, people are going to keep doing what people do. So, and so with that said, like, these are a couple, quotes, right, coming out of, these discussions, right, around this, the region being Europe. The region can no longer rely on the United States, so it needs its own satellite communications, air defenses, homegrown nuclear umbrella for Europe, and much more research spending. Combining new defense-related issuance with existing joint borrowing programs, including approximately 650 billion from coronavirus era, 95 billion from Ukraine, Europe is on track to establish a Eurobond market exceeding $1 trillion. It's huge, right? Like, it's a lot. Uh, you know, this is really one of those things where this is a huge decoupling, right? The fact that this is going forward, like actual the actual kind of back and forth, like, oh, are we doing it? Like, they're going to placate nice with the United States, but this decision, I mean, is pretty substantial. And the holdout is Germany. It's the largest economy. And if they do choose to accept the Eurobond system, we're going to see a huge pivot in the United States. But also the huge thing is the EU's satellite, their tech, they are going to extricate themselves, it appears to me, from the United States tech bubble for surveillance, for the internet, for social media, for all of these things. And that might be the singular most exciting thing, at least from my perspective, because as someone in America who spent a lot of time studying the tech bros and the tech bro oligarchy and these fascists that are using Facebook and these psyops and shit to take over our country and destroy the planet with their data centers, these guys, they've also really tried to embed themselves in European defense. Palantir is all over the world. These countries, if they want to avoid the fate of the United States, they need to separate their government institutions from Palantir. So I think that's a good thing. You say this and bad things come too, though, right? So EU gave approval to scale back rules regarding the limitations for companies to address environmental and human rights risks in supply chains. This is coming from months of pressure from businesses and governments, including the United States and Qatar. The Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive was significantly weakened from its original form. Demands from the US and Qatar for the rollback were based on concerns it could disrupt their gas exports to Europe. And so this is kind of one of those things where, this rollout, it reveals the mechanism by which energy dependency serves as political leverage. If the United States wants to move away from if the EU wants to move away from Russian oil and gas, that leaves them with a decision. It's either the United States or the Gulf states. So if they choose to, collude, the United States wants to pump the atmosphere full of as many greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane, anything they can, coal, for whatever reason, it's just money. I mean, even combustion, right, it's not the most efficient means of energy production that we have at all. Cars are expensive. You need hundreds of thousands, I think it's like hundreds or thousands of parts, individual little parts to go into an engine, right? Where a battery and a solar panel can do the same thing. And, in terms of it's simpler to construct, it's about money. And so that's the oil lobby is very powerful in the United States. So, this rollback itself, we're seeing that kind of pressure. So even if they want to build up their military power, right, if they want to separate from Europe or from Russia on oil, they need to do these other things. So like the United States is going to pressure them to remove that. The United States actually just pretty much gutted the Environmental Protection Agency and rolled back climate protections here in the United States. They've officially said that they don't think climate change is even a thing. when, folks like me are over here telling you that like real data from the United States, like NOAA, like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, that one, are saying that like we're experiencing major climate catastrophe, and that at the same time the government of that agency is saying it doesn't exist. So I mean, it's a complete decoupling from science, and transparent information regarding the state of our planet, our environment, and the right of human beings like me, young people, to or older people with kids to know that like their future will exist. Um, and that's something they're actively trying to strip from the entirety of humanity, for whatever means they are thinking that they will achieve. So, in regards to the United States, what's going on in the US right now? We saw all of this tariff nonsense last week. The Supreme Court ruled against the tariffs. In this case, Trump immediately pivoted, following to a different type of tariff action. So he's now doing a 10% temporary tariff on all goods not covered by exemptions. And the regime administration, they plan on getting that up to 15%. They are using the Trade Act of 1974, and they can have these tariffs in place for up to 150 days. So, in terms of market certainty or instability, don't anticipate that anything is going to change in that regard. The tariffs are still going to be in place. And there is the question whether or not there is really any enforcement body in the United States that can actually tell the executive branch to do or not do something. And there's quite, from my perspective, there's a great deal of questioning that should be in place as to whether they really will even be able, could you actually enforce that? You could say the mechanisms are there, but it's not about mechanisms right now in the United States. It's about the willpower to actually enforce these things, something that the Congress and the Supreme Court has ruled in support of not making decisions to allow the regime to continue its actions. This is like one of the first very decisive things that they've done, and it doesn't actually stop him because they can pivot to the next tariff. And there's another tariff mechanism after this one they can use as well. So this is the problem with a lot of these bills, a lot of the executive power. It's been a slow creep in the United States, and there's just an abundance of old laws and things that this regime does and uses to basically undermine the authority of the United States Constitution, which I would argue at this point in time is a relic. It is not functional. So at best, we have a template in the United States of our Constitution, but it is not currently being enforced. Like I said, the tariff uncertainty is going to remain. It's not going to go away. At the same time, you have the Canada and Mexico. They are going to be still receiving some of these things, these tariffs as well. Maybe some wiggle room for the USMCA trade agreement in that regard, but no one is going to get any. That no one's going to take anything away from here. You're not going to say like, oh, it's going to change. What I will say at last point is a lot of the trade deals they already made were about the last tariffs, the ones that they can't have in place anymore. So that calls into question whether any of those trade deals are valid. And so I have to wonder. And so this literally, I guess Trump made a statement about being like, hey, like you don't get to renege on any of our trade deals. Okay. Like it doesn't matter. I'll still attack you. And everyone's like, I mean, it's going to be, America looks really weak right now. So, I don't think really America's ever looked weaker. The Pentagon is now using AI for mineral price trade block, excluding allies. So the Trump administration is developing a Pentagon AI program for a set reference to set reference prices for critical minerals within a new trade bloc, according to sources familiar with the plan. The program would establish pricing mechanisms for minerals essential to defense and technology sectors, potentially excluding traditional allies from access. Today in Washington, Reuters is reporting that Trump eyes Pentagon AI program for trade bloc minerals pricing, and as well as the program is appeared to be designed to act a parallel architecture outside of the traditional alliances frameworks. So, this represents the construction of a mercantile bloc that treats the Europe as a competitor rather than a partner, which they are. They are a competitor. There's only so much of these things in the world. I find this system very I don't like it. I don't like it because we've already seen them manipulate the U.S. markets when it's come to critical minerals. We saw them orchestrate a crash surrounding silver and gold when it got too high and they were having a shortage. So they caused a short. They caused the price to drop. They bought in bulk. The U.S. government gave $10 billion. And they mixed that money. The U.S. Export-Import Bank of the United States, a relic of Trump prior in 2016. They provided $10 billion in capital. They mixed that with the capital of private companies like Google and Meta and car companies, and they went in and used that $13 billion to buy up those resources that they drove down. If it looks like they're manipulating the market, I wholeheartedly allege that they are manipulating the markets, that there is no free market, and that they are determining the price of these things. And this AI program, in that similar vein, it very much reminds me of this repeating pattern of creating systems through which they can control and manipulate the price of these assets that they can no longer get through traditional means because of China's trade restrictions. So it's ridiculous. And so, they're saying they're going to roll this out over the course of 3 years. So the only thing I could really think is they're going to really affect the price and the value of assets of Americans. If you own gold or silver, uh, they're going to hurt the price of your savings, your assets in America, in those valuations because of to help them acquire those things. So, very another evidence of this shift in the U.S. markets. It's super depressing in that sense because everyone's retirement in the United States is entirely vulnerable. There is no guarantee that they don't just crash your pension, and they can and they will do that. And so, these are the things when we're looking at geopolitics, right, versus interior politics. These are the things that are getting reported on from outside, and they're the things that matter to the most to us in a lot of ways on the inside. Lastly, to all of my friends in Canada, of whom I know there is many that join us, pretty interesting development from the Canadian government, something that I think is part of a larger trend as well, one we're seeing in Europe. But this is spurred by the shooting, was the largest mass shooting in Canada that happened, I believe, last week. So today they announced, the Canadian officials, that they will be pressing OpenAI officials about safety protocols after the ChatGPT maker did not contact police about an account it banned belonging to the alleged mass shooter. A government minister stated Canada would demand answers on OpenAI's decision-making process and whether the company has adequate protocols to identify and report credible threats. The incident exposes a governance vacuum surrounding AI platforms. OpenAI identified behavior severe enough for the account termination, but did not escalate to law enforcement. Despite possessing evidence of potential violent intent, the pattern is consistent with broader tech sector practices. Platforms act as private arbiters of threat detection without public accountability or obligation to coordinate with state security apparatus. That is what all of this also follows the trend of the investigations in Ireland, in a bunch of these European countries, into Meta and Facebook and these other American tech companies, for their, abuse of data, the violation of simple, European laws, and creating situations like this where Canada has every right to limit AI. And if you want to use an AI in Canada, Canada can make its own AI. They have their own tech sectors, right? This is like that same conversation we talked about in the beginning, where we were talking about European funds to build all of these new systems for themselves. That's one of the most important parts about this. Is that's one of the more dramatic decouplings, is from a technological perspective. If you are to isolate and cut out the U.S. Tech and defense sector, which is what's effectively happening, the United States loses a tremendous amount of influence, and the dollar is going down, down, down. The U.S. economy is in a bad way, very bad way. So, uh, and when it goes, I think that everyone else will be ready. I think this is a slow roll. I think that Canada and Mexico, they're having discussions about their bilateral trade relationship, excluding the United States. All of these things come together. The picture that I'm seeing in Europe today, in the United States, is one of a United States that is very worried about its ability to even functionally produce the things it needs to have a military deterrent or project power, a tech industry that lacks the inputs to carry out its objectives in building a surveillance state and massive data centers, building out their drone apparatus, right? They have a lot of ideas in America and not a lot of materials. And you can't do one without the other. So that's what I have for you guys today. That's the report. That's where we are across Europe. And I hope you got a better idea and a better understanding of the trends in this decoupling of the transatlantic relationship, something that we've been watching kind of happen a while. And this is one of those really big pivot points. And this is all happening at the same time that things are going on in Iran. And it doesn't strike me as truly absurd, or it's truly strange that the United States is doing the same thing it does domestically on a geopolitical standpoint with this whole Iran debacle, of just capturing all the attention and statements here. I'm going to bomb you tomorrow, this and that. That's totally the idea, right? Is, oh, don't look at the fact that the world is literally flipping us the bird and going the other way. Look at how big and tough and how much we're attacking Iran. So, we'll see what happens. But, as I leave you, I think the United States looked weaker than ever. I think the United States is about to make a huge mistake in Iran. And I think that the world order is changing. And I think that Europe is making concessions where it has to, and it will continue to pivot and diversify away from the United States, work more closely with Canada in terms of energy. I think that's a huge solution. I think they need to partner with Canada. But more importantly is, we need to just get away from gas in general. Liquid natural gas and oil, it needs to go. It is going to wipe out humans. We are going to get wiped out by a bunch of billionaires who are not willing to invest in sustainable and clean energy. And we can't let that happen. That's a world issue. It's a global issue. That's a democracy issue. And that's something we need to be talking about on all cylinders. The EU rolling back these climate requirements, it should concern all of us. And hopefully, if you're in the EU, demand from your government, what's your long-term plan? These are the questions we need to be asking in all of our democracies, because the science doesn't align with the standard lines of 100 years before things change. No, we're talking on a 5 to 10 year scale, and nothing has been more important ever, and should be a higher priority than dealing with our environment, and making sure we don't lose the means for the planet to sustain life in the capacity that we need it to be to sustain us as people. So With all of that said, guys, thank you so much for joining me today for this report. Whether you're watching on Banner and Backbone, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you are watching the video later, make sure you hit the heart button. And if you haven't subscribed, do that. Subscribe, because then you get all this stuff delivered. If you missed the recording, don't worry. It's going to show up in your inbox with the little newsletter in there and everything as well. You're going to be getting more of those informations. Go and subscribe. And check us out on other socials. You can scan this QR code here right on the screen. It'll take you to my link tree where you can go and visit our the Firebrand Project now. Not every platform has posts up, but you can go and visit us on TikTok. You can go and find us on Instagram. We're on X. We're on Threads. We're on everything I could possibly, get my hands on. So we're diversifying out to really get into those now. All those different platforms, because we want to be bringing journalism, particularly the reporting, open source reporting based on integrity and verifiability. I don't want you to trust me. I want you to trust that open source information, because the Firebrand Project is about bringing the type of information that the professionals get to the citizens of the wider world. I want to be that bridge for you. I'm going to continue to be that bridge for you. And as the Firebrand Project, the Firebrand Project that is going to be of the future, we're going to make this information available to everyone through getting onto all these other platforms and expanding, particularly in Substack. So if you're here on Substack and you aren't subscribed, or you're a follower, not a subscriber, upgrade today. If you can become a paid subscriber for $6 a month, it's never been more helpful. It's never been more important in supporting my work. This kind of thing, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It takes a lot of time and effort on my part to consolidate and get you guys this information. So if you can help support me through a paid subscription, please do so. You can also make donations through my link tree at the Buy Me a Coffee link there. So I hope you can find your way through there and go and check out all of that information. Most importantly, my job is to bring this information to you. It's up to you, the Firebrands, to decide what you're going to do with it. So I hope that you take everything we talked about today, you take this new message, this new effort we're going to make to bring open source intelligence into reporting, and to make that the standard. Then become a subscriber, then become a paid subscriber, then become a free subscriber, become a regular watcher. That is just as important as you taking what we talked about today and going out in your circles, in your community, or making a post on your personal social media about what you're seeing going on, what's important. We can't all focus on everything, but I can bring you guys all of this so you can focus on what you think matters the most in your space. So let's keep doing that. And thank you all so much for tuning into today's report. And I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. And I hope to see some of you guys visit us on other social media platforms. But of course, until then, always remember, burn bright, resist, and I will talk to you all.